What's up, everybody? Nico Dwyer back for the 10th inning, giving you another edition of This Day in Sports History. In yesterday's edition, we saw the greatest 45 minutes in sports history when Jesse Owens tied or broke 4 world records at the Big Ten Championship. In today's episode, we don't have any record-breaking performance such as Jesse Owens. However, there are still some good things that went on this day in sports history. Before we start though, if you're new to the channel and you like what you see, hit that subscribe button. If you enjoy the video, leave a like on it. Let's get into it. This day in sports history. Today we start out in 1894 with Emanuel Lasker. At age 26, he became the youngest world champion chess player when he defeated Wilhelm Steinitz with 10 wins, 5 losses, and 4 draws in their 19 matches. Lasker would end up having the longest reign of any world chess champion player, with a reign of 27 years. Moving up to 1907, we have one of the fake no-hitters in MLB history. Ed Walsh no-hit the New York Highlanders in the White Sox 8-1 victory in 5 innings. It was 5 innings because the game was shortened due to heavy rainfall. As Walsh gave up no hits, the run came in the first inning where he walked 2 batters and then threw 2 wild pitches, allowing the run to come by. Those were the only men that would reach base that game. But again, it's one of those fake no-hitters because he only pitched for 5 innings. You can't really say for sure whether he would have gotten it or not. Maybe he would have, maybe he wouldn't have. So it's one of those fake no-hitters, but it happened. In 1925, that guy TY Cobb comes up once again. This time though, something good. Cobb became the first MLB player to accumulate 1,000 or more extra base hits in his career. Honus Wagner could have had this if he had not retired when he did, because he was only 4 hits short of it. Wagner retired in 1917. Cobb did this record in 1925. Wagner could have had this record 8 years earlier, but he decided to retire 4 hits shy of it, therefore allowing TY Cobb to be the first player to have 1,000 or more extra base hits. Cobb ended his career with either 1,139 or, according to Baseball Reference, 1,136, which would be good for 15th all-time in the extra base hit category. 39 total players have 1,000 or more extra base hits. Cobb, being the first, would still be in the top half today. 4 years later, sticking with baseball, you get something that you don't see every day. Pat Crawford of the Giants and Lester Bell of the Braves both come off the bench as pinch hitters, both hit grand slams in the same game. New York ended up defeating Boston 15-8 on the day. Crawford would hit his in the bottom of the 6th inning, then Bell would hit his in the top of the 7th inning. This is the only time during a Major League Baseball game that this has been accomplished, where 2 pinch hitters came off the bench to hit a grand slam in the same game. Now we move up a pretty big bit, going to 1956, and we have the French Championships for tennis, now known as the French Open. Lou Hode won his first and only French title, beating Sven Davidson 6-4, 8-6, 6-3 in straight sets. This was Hode's second major overall at the single level of 3 total majors. He would win the 56 Australian Open, the 56 French Open, and 56 Wimbledon. Also in 1956 at the French Championships, French Open, Althea Gibson wins her only French singles title, beating Angela Mortimer 6-0, 12-10 in straight sets. This would be her first major title at the singles game. Sticking with the French Open, we move up to 1963. On the men's side, Roy Emerson defeated favorite Pierre Darmon. Emerson ended up defeating Harmon 3-6, 6-1, 6-4, 6-4 in 4 sets. This would be the first of 2 major championships for Emerson. Overall in Emerson's career, he would end up winning 12 majors at the singles level. Moving to the women's side, Leslie Turner wins the first of her 2 French titles and majors in singles game. She defeated Ann Jones 2-6, 6-3, 7-5 in 3 sets. Moving up to 1974 at the Indianapolis 500, Johnny Rutherford wins his first of 3 Indy 500s in 3 hours, 9 minutes, 10.094 seconds. 8 years later in 1982, we got the 26th edition of the European Cup, which put Aston Villa going up against Bayern Munich. Villa ended up defeating Munich 1-0 to get their first championship, with Peter White getting the game-winning goal in the 67th minute. Bayern actually scored in the final 3 minutes of the game, but it was taken back due to offsides. Then, Villa scored in the last couple minutes of the game, but that was overruled too. The final score ended up being 1-0. Aston Villa walked away with their first championship. At the Indianapolis 500 in 1985, Danny Sullivan ended up winning by 24 seconds following a spin in the 120th lap. He lost control but didn't end up going into the wall. Then he regained control without stalling. 20 laps later, he would have the lead. He would lead the rest of the race. 61 laps, he would lead. He would end up winning his first title. At the Stanley Cup final in 1988, the Oilers were going up against the Bruins, and the Oilers were looking for a sweep, and that's what they got, winning 6-3 in Game 4 to get the sweep. The most memorable part of this series was the power outage in Game 4 at Boston Gardens. They were tied 3-3 in the second period when this happened. They didn't end up finishing the rest of the game, so they decided Game 4 would take place in Edmonton. When Game 5 was supposed to take place, they would just replay that game. Well, Edmonton came to play, winning 6-3 in Game 4. The score was tied 2-2 after one period. Then the Oilers scored 3 in the second period, putting the game on ice. Edmonton had swept the Bruins for another Stanley Cup championship. Then in 1993, we have the infamous, or famous, whatever you want to call it, Carlos Martinez hit a home run that bounced off of Jose Canseco's head. If you haven't seen it, I advise you to go look at it. Just look up Jose Canseco baseball head. Also in 1993, at the UEFA Champions League final, Mercilli ended up defeating Milan 1-0. Basile Boli ended up getting the game-winning goal in the 43rd minute off of a header, giving Mercilli the victory over Milan. 3 years later in 1996, and we have history. Bobby Chouinard becomes the first player from Manila to appear in a Major League Baseball game. The Athletics pitcher threw 5 innings, giving up 8 hits and 5 earned runs in a 6-1 loss against the Baltimore Orioles that day. But he made history, becoming the first player from the Philippines, from Manila, to appear in a Major League Baseball game. Also in 1996, at the Indianapolis 500, Buddy Lazier wins in 3 hours, 22 minutes, 45.753 seconds for his only victory at the Indy. Move up a year later in 1997, we have another interesting fact from baseball. The Cubs were playing the Pirates that game, and Sammy Sosa of the Cubs, Tony Womack of the Pirates, both hit inside the park home runs on that day, back-to-back innings. It was a 2-1 game. The Pirates were the home team. Sosa hit his in the top of the 6th. Womack hit his in the bottom of the 6th. The Cubs ended up winning 2-1, Womack accounting for the only run for the Pirates. At the 1997 NHL Western Conference Final, the Detroit Red Wings were going up against the Colorado Avalanche. In Game 6, Detroit won 3-1, scoring late in the second period to go up 1-0, scoring 2 more in the third period to get the victory, move on to the Stanley Cup. At the 7th UEFA Champions League final in 1999, Manchester United defeated Bayern Munich 2-1. This would end up being a treble season for Man U, with Mario Basler scoring off a free kick in the 6th minute for Bayern, and it looked like it was locked up for Bayern. Both of United's goals came in the 90-plus minute. Teddy Sheringham scored in the 91st minute, and then Gunnar Solskjaer scored in the 93rd minute, giving United the 2-1 lead, giving them the victory. At the NHL Eastern Conference Final in 2000, the Devils were going up against the Flyers, and the Devils defeated the Flyers 4-3. The Devils won Game 1, then they went down 3-1 before making their comeback, forcing a Game 7. For the Devils, it was a 2-1 victory, 1-0 after the first with Patrick Elias scoring, then 1-1 after 2. 2 minutes left in the game, Patrick Elias for the Devils scored the second goal and the series clinching goal, sending them forward. Moving up a year later in 2001, you have the Super Rugby Cup title, and the ACT Brumbies won their first championship over the Coastal Sharks. Fullback Andrew Walker kicked 5 penalties and 3 conversions for the Brumbies in their victory. A year later at the Indianapolis 500, Helio Castroneves wins his second Indy 500 out of 3 total in 3 hours, 10.871 seconds. At the 12th edition of the UEFA Champions League final in 2004, Porto defeated AS Monaco 3-0. Porto had goals by Carlos Alberto in the 39th minute, Deco in the 71st minute, and then Dmitry Alinichev in the 75th minute to get that 3-0 victory. In 2006, more history on the baseball field. Derek Jeter became the 8th Yankee in history to accumulate 2,000 hits. Derek Jeter would later become the first Yankee to amass more than 3,000 hits in his career, but up to this point, he became the 8th player to get more than 2,000 hits. 3 years later, at the NHL Eastern Conference Final in 2009, the Pittsburgh Penguins defeated the Carolina Hurricanes 4-0. Game 1 was a 1-point victory for the Penguins. After that, they won by 3 or more in every single game. In Game 4, Carolina scored 2 minutes into it, getting the 1-0 lead, but the Penguins would score 2 goals, putting it 2-1 after the first period. Over the course of the rest of the game, the Penguins scored 2 more goals, including an empty net goal at the end of the game to sweep the series, move on to the finals. In 2013, you have the Indianapolis 500 and the IPL final in the same day. At the Indy 500, Tony Cannon wins in 2 hours, 40 minutes, 3.4181 seconds, his only win at the Indy. Then all the way across the world at the IPL cricket final, the Mumbai Indians defeated the Chennai Super Kings by 23 runs for their first IPL title. In 2015, the LeBron James-led Cleveland Cavaliers swept the Atlanta Hawks, moving to the NBA championship. At the 2018 edition of the UEFA Champions League final, Real Madrid defeated Liverpool 3-1 for their 3rd straight title. Benzema started the scoring off in the 51st minute for Real, then Sadio Mane came back for Liverpool in the 55th minute, making it a 1-1 game. Gareth Bale took over then, ended up scoring 2 goals in the 64th minute and the 83rd minute to give Real that 3-1 victory. And then finally, at the 2019 edition of the Indianapolis 500, Simon Pagenaud finished just 0.2 of a second ahead of Alexander Rossi to win his only Indy 500 championship. So there you have it. That's what happened on this day in sports history. If I left anything out, let me know down in the comments section. Until tomorrow, for the 10th inning, Nico Dwyer, see ya.